We didn't grow up knowing what executive function skills were. Life felt overwhelming. Managing time, staying organized, and feeling stuck made everything difficult. What we didn't realize was that we lacked the skills to plan, prioritize, and break goals into manageable steps. After years of trial and error, we've seen how powerful executive function skills can be. With expert interviews, real stories, and practical strategies, this podcast is the resource we wish we had. Whether you're a student, parent, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential. Today we're talking with Christian Chamberlin, who's a superstar coach at Untapped Learning. Christian was diagnosed with ADHD later in life and has firsthand experience of what it's like to navigate the challenges that this can bring, but also the strengths that come with it. His perspective offers valuable insights for individuals with ADHD and parents supporting children with executive function challenges. Let's get started. Christian, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk to you and hear about your path.
Likewise, I've been looking forward to this.
We're different in the fact that I had an ADHD diagnosis early on, and it sounds like you recently just got yours within the past few years.
Yeah, literally a year and a half ago. So I'm turning 30 this summer. I got it at 28.
Those are always the people that break my heart just because I got help early on and I got noticed. And it's always like the kind, intelligent people who aren't wrecking the classroom who seem to just like get unnoticed because they're not behaving.
Slip through.
Yeah. Was that you?
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely the kid that parent-teacher conferences, it was like, hey, we know Christian is smart. We know he's able, he's really capable. He just talks too much in class and he can, crack too many jokes, be a little bit of a distraction. And it was fine through elementary school. It's the classic, right? A little more work in middle school. And middle school was really for me when it was like, oh, he's not turning in homework either. So.
And let me guess, you were actually doing the homework.
Gosh.
But not turning it in?
Oh, sometimes I do it. I felt so beyond burnt mentally at the end of a day, school day. I'd usually get home and fall asleep. My sleep schedule was kind of all over. I had a really kind of strong inner battle around school. Like, can I get this work done in such a way that's actually going to lead to what I want in life? And why is it done this way? And why do I have to show up? So I really battled. I was pretty willful. By the time I got home, I was like, oh, this is hard for me to want to try more.
Did you have any idea that it was ADHD, or did you think it was just not a fit for what you were going for?
I don't even know if I was aware of ADD. I was born in 95, so I think I remember, maybe other kids toss around ADD, like we're joking about someone being crazy or something. That was about where it began and ended in my mind. And again, I would still get good grades when I did do the work, and I'd pull those procrastination A's out of nowhere, right? In the final hour with a paper or something. So it was enough to kind of keep it from seeming like a big issue, I think.
Well, and you said something really important in there because in the 90s, ADD at the time, now it's ADHD, right. But ADD at the time was only thought of as hyperactive, like spaz kid.
Right.
And we know that's only a portion of this. And so it doesn't sound like you have that hyperactivity piece.
It comes and goes in waves. So I got out and ran around and acted crazy enough as a kid to kind of keep that in check. Like I wasn't getting up in class and running around, at that level, but I was pretty concerned with adults' perception of me enough that I could kind of figure out the impulse control game because I didn't want to be not liked, right? And with peers too. So I looked around enough to be kind of figuring out this game of, okay, well, this isn't a time for me to do this. Not enough for it to, not come up in parent-teacher conferences, at least the talking for it.
Well, it sounds like you were self-aware enough to not push it far enough to get the diagnosis, or for teachers to say, this child needs to see the doctor. Like, I'm sure you got a lot of the, if he just put in more effort, type of comment.
Yes. And I think what made a big difference for me was that, you fast forward a bit. I mean, I did public school until the middle of my freshman year of high school. And that was a time when I went with my parents to like one of those cheesy mind success seminars at one point, right? And my dad came up out of just and moving all over the place as a kid. And he had and always has a hunger for personal growth. So I kind of saw him reading those types of books and went to one of these seminars at like 14. I was going to Monarch at the time, and I was struggling to keep up with the new kind of workload of high school and homework. And I was getting really frustrated because I felt like, well, I have ambitions. I want to accomplish something. I want to start a business or, be a successful independent creative person, right? There's so many ways that you can accomplish that, but I couldn't connect the dots. And I felt like if I could just focus on less subjects at a time and kind of rework pacing and sequence for myself, maybe I could do better. And was actually able to negotiate with my parents to switch to online school. And that was in the middle of my freshman year.
Interesting. So you went to online school after public school. Because,
yeah,
what you're saying, obviously what we know now that tracks one-to-one with ADHD, right? Like we do really well with hyperfocus. And then when we have to focus on 6 or 7 different subjects and be pretty good in 6 or 7 different things, well, it typically doesn't work out well.
Right.
But when we hyper-focus on one thing and get really good, it works out much better. And also that's real world rewards you for that versus school rewards you for the opposite.
Totally.
So, what you're saying tracks, but I guess I should take a step back. How did online school go? I can see a lot of parents viewing that as a nightmare for a kid.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know how much they were looking at me even through that lens or thinking about ADHD. And I think we're at the time kind of diagnosis averse and very much, we don't want to attach labels and that there's a danger there. But essentially, when I first started the online school, it was a nightmare because it was like, okay, here I am at home in my room and now I have all this choice. But then it's like, oh, shoot, I don't have these skills.
And I have no structure.
I have no structure. I would journal, long form journaling, because I learned that through some, personal growth books. And I was doing that. And I would read what I wanted to read for solid amounts. If it was like Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Body, I remember it at I think age 15, getting into that. But going through those, I discovered pretty quick in the rest of that freshman semester that I would end up in the same spot without growing in those skills. And it was kind of a rude awakening. I ended up having to do a lot of catch up and negotiation with teachers at the end of that semester online. And then we found an online school through a private one where you pay for the classes and I would be able to actually take one at a time. And I was like, let's start with math because I hate it. I want to get it out of the way. And that was a taste of success because I stepped back up to the plate and I did a year high school math class in a month because it was the only class I was doing. And I felt like I could keep creating a cadence of focus that worked for me. But fast forward, I still struggled and I just wanted to be, learning about entrepreneurship and creating music. I'd gotten into music at that point and negotiated again to get my GED. So then I was just like, let me just crack down and finish high school that way. And I fast forwarded a good amount, but yeah, there was a Kickstarter project in there. A lot of experiences that
I don't think most people would meet you because you're highly educated and you don't fit what most people view as a GED type student.
No.
And throughout this, because you had a very hard educational process, still without receiving a diagnosis.
Yes.
And again, that's not anybody's fault. It's just interesting you went through all these steps where no one caught on to this ADHD thing.
Right.
So you finally got the diagnosis recently. What was that like?
Well, it started with talking to some friends who have been diagnosed. One of my friends was like, I think you should read ADHD 2.0 because I had spent, a year basically just really trying to find like a career change and looking at and really taking stock of, man, I feel like I'm continuously starting over professionally and with interests because I have seasons of deep hyperfixation and then I'm like, what else? What can I do now that's new? So I read ADHD 2.0 and I just felt seen. And I thought, okay, I should look into getting a diagnosis. And so I think it took me about 2 months after reading the book to get around and make it happen. And I didn't have health insurance at the time, so I used a service that you kind of just pay up front, almost like getting a dental cleaning without insurance. You just pay out of pocket and did that. And it was humbling, honestly, because accepting that I'm wired differently to a degree that requires different interventions to be at, a dopamine-based learning of people without ADHD. Like, I didn't want to accept that. But at the same time, I was able to go, okay, well, I've leaned into music, movement, and exercise. By that point, I had done a 50-mile ultra marathon. I trained for a few years. And, I was aware in the kind of experiment of one in my own brain and body, what did make a difference on different days and for weeks and months with my focus and just feeling grounded. And so the exercise, creating, having an outlet, environment changes, these are all things in these books that are are essential. And I was like, well, they're essential for everybody. But then I started to treat them like medicine and go, no, Christian, yeah, everyone should exercise and benefits from it. And the difference for you when you do it versus don't is very different. So it was a lot of acceptance, maybe some 12 stages or however many stages of grief.
Yeah, well, I think everyone who's been diagnosed can kind of relate to that grief thing. You go through this grieving process because, you talked about growing up and going to self-help seminars.
Yeah.
And trying to almost willpower your way through this. There's so much that you can do. However, like you said, there's certain things that are just essential to people like me and you, which are best practice for everybody else.
Right.
But we have no choice.
Right.
Movement as medicine is a great one. There's no choice for you and I.
Yeah.
We couldn't be having this conversation if you and I didn't move today.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a lot of grieving there, but it sounds like you're, a couple years out moving towards acceptance.
Totally. And I mean, my wife, Tessa Zimmerman, she runs an education nonprofit called Upstream, and having her as my partner working on and reflecting back, having I love Julia Cameron's term, a believing mirror from the artist's way. These people that are around you, it's part of environment, right? Relationships, who are you around? And being with her and getting, just those messages, I see you, I can tell these things are hard. And wow, I just want to say this week you did this, that, and the other. I can see this difference. And then when I'm stewing or just head up against the wall, in the job application grind or big life questions, whatever, and I'm spinning my wheels, her reflecting back hey, when's the last time you went for a run? Or my mom telling me when's the last time you made a song for yourself? Just right. So those believing mirrors helped and continuously help when I stray to come back to that acceptance, which then creates the actual possibility of agency.
First of all, marrying well is a very underrated part of ADHD.
Yeah.
And this is definitely not the show for that. But going back to having that mirror, because I think, and I'm guilty of this as a parent as well, when I see my daughter struggling, I want to give her the answer. And having someone who is a mirror, because we struggle with self-assessment. That's just this metacognition part of ADHD, right? We get it over time, but having the mirror is so valuable. Instead of saying, go for a run right now, when is the last time you've moved? Would that be helpful for you?
Right.
It's so helpful.
We're social animals. And that's kind of one way to look at it is to go, okay, am I taking care of socially? Are my habits and my relationships strong and nourishing? It comes back to I can better act my way into a new way of thinking than I can think myself into a new way of thinking.
I like that a lot. Starting with the body and then going to the brain, which I think is backwards for most people.
Yeah.
Especially those with ADHD, where their mind is racing. Taking you back to middle school or high school, Christian, were you defensive? And second question is, how do you manage that now? Because be able to accept this feedback and this mirroring, I imagine wasn't easy always.
Right. Well, the first part, was I defensive about, could you give me an example?
Yeah, so were you defensive? So when someone mirrored something back to you, Christian, I bet studying in your bedroom probably, or doing this online class in your bedroom is probably not the ideal location for you.
Right.
Did you always receive that?
Yes and no. I would say that, the first example, actually, when you just said the word defensive, I just snapped into parent-teacher conferences and in middle school and them giving, and I'm sitting there with my parents and all the teachers, all my core class teachers at once. And
that's a lonely feeling.
They say that, he talks too much jokes. And I'm leaned back in my chair, nodding, but also smiling and laughing about it. And it's hard. So I get my answer with the defensiveness is yes and. I got it and I would receive it, but it did feel like it was hard. It's hard to accept.
So one of the facts that I quote all the time that I hate is the typical kid with ADHD gets 10,000 more negative comments than positive comments by the age of 10, and then it goes up quickly from there. And so what you see is two things. If you're constantly getting that feedback, you see some kids build up this shell, like what you're talking about.
Right.
And so forget you, I'm going to make it no matter what. And then you see other kids go down a different path and basically shut down. and stop caring about school,
Right.
stop caring about other things. So I guess now that you've worked with so many students, what feedback would you give to a parent who has a defensive kid at home?
Well, it circles back well to the being a believing mirror. I don't really care what age you are. Like, we have biases and filters we see through, and our state affects these kids. So with a parent, I would say, like, where's your state management at?
It's good advice. Yeah.
First, just
we're always so worried about our kids, right?
we can't co-regulate without showing up as regulated adults. And I'd say, taking steps to do that, whether it's a few breaths before you walk in the room or ask them about the thing, and then reflect on, okay, is there any fear or tension that I have that's mine that I'm bringing into this conversation? What is it? Can I name it? And it's good. It's there to help us take care of each other better and predict possible outcomes and survive and thrive, right? But just own the fear, name it. And then what powerful questions can I lead my child with more than nagging and answer giving, as you said? And it's, oh my gosh, it's so much easier for me to say that as a mentor, because even working with the kids, I'm not a parent yet. So I don't have the emotional. I'm probably going to cry and laugh at myself, down the line as a parent about how the advice I gave and how hard it is to implement.
Well, I've done both, right? And so it's so much harder with your child.
Yeah.
It's so emotional. If a kid comes into Untapped and has like a C in gym, I can calmly work through that situation, figure out how to get that grade up and make sure the teacher knows they're invested.
Right.
If it's my own child, it's like, your great grandmother came over on the Mayflower. How dare you disrespect this family? It just gets so emotional, right?
Yeah.
That being said, again, I've done this for a long time. One of the core questions I ask families is, what's going to happen to your student? Let's say they're 13 years old. Like, where do you see this child at 25?
Right.
And it's always this dark thing, like
Yeah.
under a bridge.
That's the fear.
This, that,
That's the fear.
And so staying out of that and staying present. I'm always amazed by where these kids, what they do. If you do the right things, it's never guaranteed, but usually things work themselves out. It takes a long time, and growth is not linear, like we've talked about. It's not this stair-step growth.
Yes.
It's like, I know I've worked with many students for a long time. We've just grinded away, and then out of nowhere, at like 22, we're like, who is this?
Right.
But it takes time. And I think what you said about staying out of that fear state and being present, it's so hard. Yeah. Especially when you get emotions involved, but that's where the best outcomes occur.
It's so worth it. And it's like, what are my dreams for my child? And then the fear should not be glossed over like it's just wrong and bad and you shouldn't have it. It's important. And then the dreams part, we got to build real evidence for. So another thing I'd love to see, and I do love to see and hear parents do, is gathering real examples that they go out and find of people like their kid. And I know that's, part of the podcast. People like their kid who have quote unquote made it in whatever the ways they're most concerned about. And I do this with students too. If it's a 13-year-old, oh, I just don't have, or I'm bad at blank. Okay. And this is where the personal growth stuff has come full circle. But you find a belief like that. Okay. How do you feel when you believe that? And this is taken from a tool like Byron Katie, the work, these questions. We got to persecute those thoughts peacefully. And then when we find a turnaround, a replacement, a positive belief, oh, I am capable, or I can do hard things and it's worthwhile. Here are 30 examples in my life when I have done a hard thing and it worked out. And parents, kids, I want families to practice that together and build a powerful stack of real evidence from their own lives. If you can't find it, borrow it. That's what I mean. Like, find someone else's, someone who's gone through harder things based on your own perception.
Yeah. And
has done it. And go, okay, if they can, I can, and use it.
What you said is so important. I think one of the biggest things we get stuck on, especially when you have a middle school or high school kid who's struggling, is you don't realize that this child's going to need you for a very long time. I see so many relationships get damaged over missing math homeworks. And you don't realize that this kid's going to need you for an extra 20, 30, 40 years. And that can feel overwhelming, but that relationship is so important. And you and I both know, with technology progressing, the world is going to change a lot. What are the skills that are really valuable are the resilience, like you're speaking to, the belief in yourself, the habits, the systems, the understanding yourself. No matter what the world looks like, those are timeless skills.
Yes.
So I want to close up with you as someone who got a diagnosis later in life.
Yeah.
Someone's out there who, let's say they're in their 20s, 30s, or even 40s, and they've been suspecting that there could be an ADHD. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give them?
First, I'd say take a deep breath and just know it's okay to be in that spot. And it's totally where, your nature and life has brought you. You can resist it or you can love it. Then I would say be curious and seek out all the information. If you're diagnosis averse, type in your fears and your questions and look at what people say. Test what you learn. So also be curious about people who have been diagnosing humans with ADHD for a long time. That's why ADHD 2.0 by Drs. Holloway and Rady stood out to me, because they not only have been in practice for decades, but also cared enough to make a 2.0 of this book. And even in that, there's things that they're saying, we're curious about these other edges of research, but these are safe things to try. So yeah, maybe work on your balance. And then you got to try the stuff. It's back to the hardest things, like be willing to try. And you don't need to spend money to do it. Like if you do jumping jacks for 20 minutes barefoot, on your carpet or wood floor, your state is going to be different. It's going to be easier to get out of negative self-talk. If you haven't done something like that in a while, it's going to be hard. And if that's too big a lift, find the smallest action that is progress and just trust that it's enough for now and take it. And then I would say talk to a professional, maybe a few if you have the resources, and talk about your real thoughts and feelings with trusted loved ones regularly.
Christian, great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and thank you for being so open and vulnerable.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Thank you for joining us on the Executive Function for All podcast. If today's episode brought you any value, please rate us 5 stars and share it with someone who may benefit. And remember, every small step you take builds towards your success. For resources and guidance, visit untappedlearning.com. Keep growing, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.